Honorable Chief Guest, Mrs. Usha Padhi IAS, the Commissioner-cum-Secretary, School and Marks Education, Government of Odisha, President of this function, Dr. R.K. Naik, Professor Ambedkar Chair, Ms. Dr. Sashmi Naik, members of the governing body, faculty members, and dear students. For our seminar today, she is the right resource person. Madam, on behalf of everyone here, I welcome you to this seminar.
Thank you for a generous introduction. Esteemed faculties and officials of NISWASS, faculty members, students. It's a great opportunity for me to share some of the thoughts of our department with you, and I thank Ambedkar Chair for organizing this. So my presentation would be in the perspective of practitioners, so I keep the presentation for 10 to 15 minutes. This presentation would have structure in which I'll have a framework of access, equity and quality. Before that, a small introduction about right to education. Everybody might have heard about right to education, but just mentioning about the vision or objective, then we can go ahead. The achievements or the challenges which I would be talking with respect to right to education is basically in this framework of access, equity and quality. Because the interventions which we make, maybe there are hundreds sub-intervention, then there are sub-activities, but everything will come under the umbrella or aegis of these three aspects. Then I will list out challenges very briefly, but I expect and I hope most of the questions would be based on these challenges which would be facing. So introduction, it came into effect by the consent of President in 2009. Odisha is the second state. First was, I was told Assam was the first state, and it brought that the state rules based on the Central Act in 2010. And the vision of the Act is to provide free and compulsory education to 6 to 14 years of age group children with satisfactory completion of elementary education. Friends, I would like to mention this, in 2010 it was mentioned as 6 to 14 and elementary, 8 years of formal education. That was an idea that if with 8 years of formal education, any person or any child is going to have a basic requirement to harness its potential, and this 8 years of formal education is sufficient to get into the stream or mainstream and go for the next level of education. But today the context is something different, so it is not 8 years which we talk of, though 8 years are very important. Now government has accepted the secondary education also, because 8 years of formal education in the present context, where a generation of people who have never been to this fold of formal education, and they are the first generation of learners. When they come to the stream of education, formal education, 8 years may not be very sufficient, and the skills and competency which they acquire in 8 years may not be sufficient for them to get into the fold of next level of education and negotiate with the society for their betterment. So now we have a Rashtriya Madhyamika Shikya Abhiyan, which is also universalization of secondary education. So first RTE was about universalization of elementary, now we have gone to the next level maybe, but I will restrict myself today about the elementary education. These are the status. When any right-based legislation is done, because you are a student, I would like to have a small academic or theoretical background for it. So if you have to have any right-based entitlement or right-based legislature, so you have to identify, there are two major stakeholders. One is right holder. In this case, child. Who is the right holder in this? In RTE? Student, the child. And then the duty bearers who will ensure that this right will happen. So the child is at the center and duty bearers in a different layer. I have not put that, but it is just a understanding of theoretical concept where you have a child, then you have maybe that duty bearers. It includes parents in the first layer, guardians, community, then maybe a society at large, then state, nation, international. We have even convention, United Nations Convention on Child Rights, where we talk of these right-based issues, where this is also part of it. So when we talk of this, then there are different layers of extending this right to the right holder. One is you recognize the right. Yes, in right to education, we recognize that to harness the potential of a child to become a good citizen or a good human being with a quality life. So that is the recognition that's why we have this right. Then once you recognize the right, then you have to protect that right. How do you protect that right? By legislation maybe. We'll put that legislation into place and we'll try to protect through various institutions. Then once you start protecting, it cannot be only protection, you have to promote it also. If I say RTE is an act and I will not give a proper awareness, so it will never happen. Like in RTE, we have a component which is like stopping of corporal punishment in the schools. I recognize because child has to have a punishment-free environment to learn. So I recognize that right, then I make a law or a rule saying that in no school punishment should be awarded. That is what the protection. I recognized and they protected. Then if I don't promote and bring that awareness among the teachers and students, this law will be of no use unless somebody is claiming or somebody is following it. So we have to promote that. Then based on that, we realize what is the intention of that particular protecting or promoting that right. That is what? Giving a punishment-free environment for a child through which child will develop as a free-minded citizen. So this is what the theoretical background under which we talk. These are all those institutional arrangements which we do to protect the child of that right, whether it is the establishment of State Commission for Protection of Child Rights, or we have the corporal punishment, stopping of corporal punishment, then no retention policy, then we have guidelines for quality education, because we say with competence they will promote to the next level. So to have a quality in the education, conducting various tests for the teachers and having the quality teacher in the schools, then to redress the grievances, we have the local authority and grievance redressal agencies. Then we have orders where teachers cannot be paid for other non-teaching activities. Then providing textbooks, uniforms to ensure that everybody will have a proper access, or the equity concept which we talk of, where a child without, I may say that yes, I have opened a school, but a parent doesn't have a minimum resources to send the child to the school. Then though I may be saying that it's a free environment, it is a free school, we don't charge, but at least there is a basic requirement for a child to come to school. So if that is not there, it also should provide, then only we can realize that right which we are thinking of giving it to child. So in this context, I have listed out some of the achievement what has happened in access. Access is basically about infrastructural development, providing the schools at walkable distances, where child can reach these schools without any hindrances. Then we have special type of children, maybe a migrated child with their parents who have been migrating, so giving them the special opportunities. Differently abled child which requires a special access, the physical access itself may not be possible, so providing the ramp and tricycle and orienting the teachers so that they can also be mainstreamed with the general students, some specific training programs for them, materials, all this comes under the access. Then these are the out of school children which we have identified. If a child is out of the school fold and we say that the child has to be enrolled into the age appropriate classes. Like you find a child who might have gone to school or maybe dropped out, or a child who have never gone to the school, children who have never gone to the school. So if you bring them and say, okay, he or she is of 9 years, so put that child into the class 3. So class 3, there is already a set of children who have learned something, and these people go as a new children and they will not be able to catch up what teacher is telling. So from the day one they have been segregated as a slow learners, or they are not learning up to the mark. So this is why we have the problem. So we have a special training courses, even sometimes it is residential also. We have organized for that. This all comes under access. I will not emphasize much on this. This is continuation, the number of schools, providing toilets, because for girl child, one of the major reason which has been identified as out of school, or they are not continuing, there is a lot of dropout among the girl children. It is because we don't have a proper sanitation facility and drinking water facility at the school level. So this is one of the priority. So 127 Kasturiba Gandhi Balika Vidyalaya. These are schools which have been established in educationally backward blocks. Educationally backward blocks are those blocks where the literacy percentage is less than 30%. So most of tribal dominated blocks in Odisha comes under this. Out of 314 blocks, we have 182 blocks, if I remember correct, are educationally backward blocks. So in 182 blocks, we have identified this 100-seated girls hostel, which is attached to the school, where any girl child who have never come to the fold of the formal education would be identified, and they will be brought to the hostel, and every facility is provided there so that they can complete 8 years of formal education. So we have already 182 number of such hostels. This is about equity. It is continuation of the access point of it. So when we talk of children, all the children are same to us, but some children are more vulnerable. So to have those children in school, we have to make special arrangements. So equity comes into picture when we have to target more on SC/ST community, we have to target more on girl children, we have to target more on specially or differently abled children. So these are few activities which have been approved in Sarva Shikya Abhiyan. There have been lot of flexibility, whatever is required for the state, accordingly it is identified. One of the unique thing which has happened in our state is the multilingual education, because we have more than 13 districts which are scheduled in coming under schedule area, where we have a lot of population under the category of scheduled tribe and scheduled caste. There we have to give them an education which is in their mother tongue. If most of the time you might see that in private schools, bada bada school, it is an international school, in pursuit of excellence, in pursuit of, I mean, whatever, the international standards. But it is very, very misleading. Primary school kebbe bhi excellence pai nahi. Primary school teaching hela pillanku padiba bitare tara life experience ku classroom transaction re aniba pai. So in that way you have to bring the experience of child, their lifestyle into the classroom transaction, so that child can relate it into the learning experiences. That's what our national curriculum framework tells. So it is not to bring an extraordinary human being or a genius among the child. It is not the aim of elementary education. So your excellence will happen when child passes through secondary education, and then identifying its own creativity, then it will go in that line and try to do, whether it is science, commerce, physics, chemistry, whatever they want to do, they can do it in that particular lane. So in this way we have to see that child. If a child doesn't get the proper environment, learning environment in the classroom, if a teacher is of talking different language, textbooks are in a different language, So the child is not able to enjoy or joyful learning cannot happen in the classroom. So this can happen, and that confidence. In most of the government school, if you go, children will not talk to you eye to eye. They usually are very scared. Unless you ask them, they will not get up and tell, because that much of self-esteem and confidence we haven't built in our normal teaching experiences. So this can happen only when their mother tongue is recognized as a language for communication and learning. Maybe this is helping child to come to school without any fear. Number two, even psychologically also it is established by the scientists that a child which is taught in mother tongue at the early stage would be able to understand the skills better rather than any other way of teaching the child. So these are the two things which we have already done. So it is very unique to state, because we don't have very successful experiment in this regard. Very few experiments which have been done in some of the states. So ours is considered as one of the good one, and I am proudly telling you this is the initiative which we thought can bring lot of tribal boys and girls into the fold of teaching. Otherwise it was never happening. In the name of multilingual education, we could recruit at least 4,000 tribal boys and girls who can teach in their language, and if they don't have the teachers training, still we have recruited them, taking a special permission, so that in distance education program we can impart the teacher training to them, but their language and their acquaintance with the local culture and tradition itself is an asset in the classroom. The quality, somehow, if there has been any failure in Sarva Shikya Abhiyan, which usually talked of, is of quality. Many people you may hear saying that when we were studying, the quality was very good, teachers were very good. Now the government school standard has deteriorated like anything. And report of ASSER, you have heard about ASSER report? Annual study on status of education. So every year it is released by the NGO called Pratham. NGO, it's not Pratham alone, but it's a consortium of NGOs. So they release a report on implementation of RTE and status of education in many states. In almost all the states, except I think Jammu and Kashmir, they release the report, in which you can see they mention usually class 4 child, 50% of class 4 child will not be able to read the class 2 lessons. Or the addition, minimum 2-digit addition is not done by even class 2 children. So many percentage is not able to do it. So this shows that the quality has been a major concern in government high school. There are 2-3 factors which I can attribute to for what has happened. Somehow the teacher education in country, for that matter, specifically in our state, has been the back burner. We did not focus much on the quality of teachers. The salary for teachers which we have been offering for quite some time has not been very good. So the stream which was coming for the education or teacher profession has been very left out. Say people who are not getting any opportunities, they are coming. So the level of pride which was attached to the teachers community has gradually come down. So this is one of the reasons I can say. The second is the expansion of the program. So when we say 20 years back or 50 years back education was very good, how many of our families could afford to send their children to the school? It was very less, maybe 30%. One empirical report says 50 years back only not even 50% of the families were sending their children to the school. So now this massive expansion of the program. So what is the profile of our children? As I said, they are the first generation learners. They have come from various corners. They have come from families which have never heard of any school or colleges. So when you have the profile of children in such an expanded manner, certainly you are going to have huge mass for which we are not prepared. to give a quality education. Number 3, I would like to mention that it is the governance issue in overall context when we talk of whether we have proper planning of implementing the schools, constructing the schools and implementing all the aspects. So it comes as a governance issue which is overarching into all the aspects. So in quality, I would like to mention in National Curriculum Framework was there in 2005. So based on that 2007, we have done our state specific curriculum. Last year, we have finalized the continuous comprehensive evaluation, which was followed by CBSE. We had not done it in our state because 3 years examination is not going to bring any, we will not be able to evaluate the child in a fair manner. So the continuous comprehensive evaluation has been adopted. It is quite ambitious program. So last year we have given lot of training to teachers. So this academic session we feel that it is not only the reading and writing but other personality of the child, the multi-dimensional personality of the child would also be honed through this type of evaluation. We have created lot of self-reading materials and some teaching learning material for the teachers in the name of Samadhan and Sadhan. It has been revised now. It has been done some years back, but we have revised it now. Then Sopan is nothing but a graded material which we give it to class 1, 2, 3 because early learning is very important. Whatever they learn in class 1, 2, 3, recognizing the letter, recognizing the words, bringing the personal experience into the classroom and having a discussion, sharing a thought. So these things can happen only when they are given some additional material. Swayam is self-learning material, little higher classes, especially for science and maths we have done it. Then we have supplementary reading material which is used other than the textbooks. Then we have a Sati which is called a student profile. What you have is called as a student diary where entire student's curriculum is reflected. Then teachers training program. So this discussing the various achievement, I have touched upon those issues. The addressing infrastructural gap which I was mentioning, we have at present around 60,000 number of primary schools in this state. So when I say infrastructural gap, don't think that I am talking of number of schools. So maybe number of schools we have to put a full stop because everybody wants a school in their own area which is just mechanically 1 kilometer and getting it done, but that school may not be sustainable or feasible. So many report you might be seeing in many places in a school there are only 5 children, there are 1 teacher or 2 teachers, which we cannot close because there is so much of nexus developed in the facilities given by the school or school management committee, so we are not able to close. So the infrastructural gap is basically consolidating the existing position where we can identify the feasible school and maybe make them a center of excellence rather than expanding it physically. So this is one major challenge which we are not able to grappling with now. Then filling up teachers vacancy, now and then you listen through media or sometimes through assembly questions that there are 30,000 teachers post is vacant. So we have started recruiting, as I was telling, around 4,000 tribal children have been recruited as teachers. Then 15,000 recruitment is going on now. Having a qualified teacher, and we have started for a quality teacher eligibility test. So the percentage of teacher eligibility test in Odisha is 10%, passing percentages. So I was very much worried. Then they said, don't worry, in central TET it is only 2%. So we have some solace saying that, okay, we are doing better. Then MLE I have touched. So we have lab sort of thing. We have around 540 schools already running under MLE. So now we are increasing it to 3,000 number of schools. But think of 3,000 and maybe 20,000 more. So scaling up is a major issue for us. Then CCE, it is like assessing a child, whether child is good at storytelling, whether child is good at singing, whether child is good at articulating something. So this requires huge skill among the teachers. So we have given direction to implement the CC in this current year, but I am not sure how much our teachers are prepared to implement this program. Early grade reading program, because as I was mentioning, ASAR report is very, very discouraging, or you can say very, very alarming about the quality of education or learning in government schools. So we have to really worry about enhancing this quality by giving minimum. I mean, as I was mentioning, we don't expect the excellence in primary level, but whether a child up to class 8 can read and write properly as per their age requirement. Maybe at class 2, the child is able to read the sentences. And more than reading it, comprehension. One of the major problem in our education system is seen as a comprehension. I am not a pedagogical expert, but I have been reading lot of books and papers on pedagogy. So it is really a technical subject. We think that it is such a, everybody knows how to teach. It is not so. It's like a profession of doctor. Teacher only knows where to cut and where to do the operation. Anybody cannot become a good teacher because there are 50 children in the classroom. All 50 have a different level of learning. So how to have this multi-grade, multi-level of classroom to address has to be a very, very, like a complex issue. Only a professionally trained and teacher having the aptitude of teaching can only make the difference. So this is one of the major thing. We are not able to fix the problem. I can suspend the teacher, I can make the teacher come in time and go back only after the school hour, but I cannot make teacher to teach the way actually it is desired. So it can only come from their heart, and it can be only come from their own aptitude, how do they teach and make this slow learner to come at par. May not be doing the 90% business, but at least they will be able to learn and have interest in learning. And bringing creating that environment where child can have self-confidence, self-esteem. This can happen only when the teacher makes that happen in the classroom. So recently we failed in all the effort, in the sense training, everything. After that I thought maybe let somebody who can tell them should be telling this, not me or any other trainer. So we requested Dr. Kalam when he was coming to Bhubaneswar to address our teachers. They were very keen to address the children because he loves, Dr. Kalam loves children, so he loves to interact with children. I said, sir, please help us to address the teacher so that this teacher can bring the changes into the lives of hundreds of children. So around 500 teachers have been called, and he interacted with teachers, and he gave half an hour or 40 minutes lecture, and he made all of our teachers to take oath. So what he taught as a purity in the character of teacher, and also the knowledge, how they can be the person who just eliminate that knowledge. So that's what the level of motivation which we are thinking of. So if it can bring a bit of change among the teachers and they can take this message to the schools, I think that is the only way forward, because we have one set of existing teachers. I can't do anything with them except dealing with them. And the second set is the people who are entering, whether we are able to get the best of the best as our teachers, that is one task. So making the existing teachers competent enough to do it, and at the final stage, if they are not competent enough, we should get rid of them. So that is a challenge where I am not able to do anything, because it is the most politicized lot. Teachers are the most politicized lot, and it has a huge ramification, because it's an academic lecture, so I am free to say that, okay, this is what the problem is. Then the budget provision for 25 reservation. RTE is the only act which was placed in Parliament without any financial bill attached to it. So there is absolutely no clear-cut financial earmark where state to central can do. The Sarva Shikya Abhiyan is one of the vehicle which was earlier DPEP, then it came to SSA. So they thought RTE would be piggybacking on SSA. So that is the separate, that is the present status now. So there is always a parallel structure of SSA which is happening, RTE which could have integrated within the educational governance has not happened now. Even now it is a parallel administration. We are trying to restructure the entire department. You might have heard now, earlier DI of school was there. We said no DI of school, now it is a block education officer. Earlier 2 through 3 district circle inspector used to be there. We said nothing. So district education officer, block education officer, it has to be a proper governance which has to be integrated. It cannot be parallel. So something which is right based cannot be done through a project mode. It has to be integrated in the governance. That's what we have been doing. So that is also creating a lot of problem to me, because the entire restructuring of the department it's a huge transition. So getting people in appropriate places, getting them the drawing and dispersing power, making them as administrator when you have a different jurisdiction earlier. So it becomes a hell of the job. So 6-7 months we have been fighting with this transition stage, but with a hope that this will stabilize after a year or so, then the entire governance, because one BO would be hardly looking after 1,000 teachers. Earlier one DI used to look after around 4,000 teachers. So teachers have pension problem, teachers have retirement benefit problem, teachers have increment problem. So 80% of our work is either in the court cases or in the teachers welfare programs. So when I joined the department, it was like many coming to department, they usually have sympathy. People say, oh, it's very, very a gondagola department, sabubale eti court case rauchi, apananku court ku dakibe, sabu karibe kariki. But so this is not an education department per se, it is the teachers welfare department. So in that way, the education becomes a back burner. So we want that it can moving from teachers welfare department to actual education department in de facto. Then involvement of community, I am not touching this, maybe in questions I will be able to touch it. We have a school management committee in every village, for every school. So usually we perceive or we believe that there is so much of cohesiveness among the community. But you go to the school, there are very few, I don't say it, I don't universalize or generalize the issue, but community is not as cohesive as we think sitting here. So it is most of the time the village politics, village equations will come into the SMC and lot of interference in the normal education system. So involvement of community, at the same time not bringing all those negative aspects into the school administration, is really a task where it's like a walking on the tightrope. We want community, at the same time we want that, okay, community should not be bring any of the such equations of their villages into the schools. It has to be only purely academic or educational thing. Only for the welfare of students, it usually doesn't happen. So I'll stop here. Thanks for patient hearing.